A warm welcome to all of our friends, fans, community members, squad mates and participants on various platforms worldwide. Thank you for watching our podcast today, and thank you for being valued members of our community as always. And most importantly, I want to thank everyone who took time to write. I received quite a few messages during this weekend, and I think all the messages were coming in view of what we discussed last week to do with safety on various online forums inclusive of video gaming, Twitch, YouTube, Discord and any other. So there will be quite a bit of time dedicated to this today, and I want to thank everyone for writing and indeed for listening to all I said. I just gave you a selection of tips and tricks which I believe will help your channel if you're a streamer, or indeed your online gaming activity if you are just a gamer. And I think they've been really very positively received, and people are writing about applying them straight away and tailoring their terms and conditions and their rules and doing everything by the book. So that was really very good, very encouraged, very elated to have heard all of that, and very grateful to all of our friends who are taking time to write and share their opinions and thoughts with you. A very cold but very bright, very sunny day out here in London suburbs, and enjoying kind of a wintry weather. To be honest, it doesn't feel like mid-April, but certainly the weather is beautiful. The sunshine is very inviting, and you will be familiar if you obviously live in Britain with the fact that today is the first day literally within the last year that we are experiencing for the first time a decrease, or I should say a withdrawal of our lockdown, which indeed had been preventing us from doing lots of things, and indeed a lockdown that was created and imposed in view of this dreadful COVID pandemic, which is still present. People shouldn't forget this. It is still present. We are having a major decrease on the number of cases in view of our vaccination program. We have already about 34 million people vaccinated, and I've seen that quite a few millions also received a second dose, so they're fully vaccinated against COVID, and that's fantastic. But we should not be letting our guard down, particularly today, as we've seen for the first time in months. I think it's about 4 or 5 months that we are going to be able to go to our hairdressers, have a haircut. I have 5 months of hair on me, in fact, and I went to my hairdresser, had a word with him about what's the best time to come in, and I'll obviously come at a time where he's not too busy. I want to avoid anyone else in his barbershop, and I think certainly within the first 3 to 4 days, it'll be packed out with everyone needing to get the haircuts done. But as we are living in a fairly small town, that all will be thinning out, I think, within a week, and then I'll pop in. I don't need to make any appointments, and we'll be able to get it all sorted. And it's good to see my barber back in after so many months of absence. Everything in our town was closed and nothing worked really, but the very essential shops, I should say the shops that provided us with some very essential goods. And well, today is the day really. People can go to pubs and they can drink outside, they can go to restaurants, also eat not indoors but outdoors, and we are progressing towards a sort of period in which we are going to be gradually easing the lockdown. On the other hand, we are going to be able to see what the number of cases is likely to be as we all get vaccinated, and that will be the most important part of our research and analysis. I'm certainly hoping that the vaccine will definitely drastically decrease the presence of the virus even more, and most importantly, if people catch the virus, they will no longer suffer fatalities, which has been the case for more than 150,000 people in Britain, if we are to be looking at the very core statistics, and there were quite a few thousand who also perished due to the various illnesses that were triggered off by the presence of COVID in the body. So we suffered dreadfully, but fortunately we did take necessary steps. We prepared for all that was to follow, and presently we have the very best situation in Europe, and we really need to be very happy, satisfied, and most importantly proud of our achievements. Proud to say that my channel here had been providing a lot of time and space for people to manage the lockdown, and I've been voted last week COVID Warrior, and very grateful to all who were suggesting this award to be given to me, and there were people from all over Europe who indeed spent their time together with me and our community members here playing Destiny, The Division, Warzone, and several other multiplayer games that included PUBG and Apex during the entire period of the pandemic, and found particularly Warzone, Destiny and Apex to be helping them tremendously in terms of the day-to-day management, and indeed, just being here with us, being able to chat, connect, share their thoughts and views with everyone else here who is in our community, have been soothing, and they were very, very grateful. So as you know, I also provided services elsewhere, which were assisting everyone who had suffered psychologically through the pandemic, and that's a separate type of service which is obviously not present here on my channel live online, but I believe that all I've done was certainly helping many people who indeed would have been experiencing lots of difficulties due to these terrible changes and a very lengthy, almost never-ending period of the lockdown. Coming back to the weekend and all, we did yet another week, and I have to say, during lockdown, time's been just passed me by so rapidly. Usually I have a routine every week, what I do, where I go, and it's fairly sort of up and about. I'm fairly busy. I go to various places in London, and then I go back home at night, and that all has been completely absent from my day-to-day life. I really had no trips anywhere but the neighbouring town in order to get my dinner. I've not been to central London for more than 13 months. Last time I went to I think Empire Leicester Square, Prince Charles, was in February of 2020. So we're talking about, what is it, about 12, 14 months even. And I've been to Enfield a couple of times, and you go to Enfield Cineworld, which is my favourite London cinema. Well, one of my favourite, let's just say it's my favourite London first run cinema. That is what I need to state. It's similar to what I had in the 90s with Kensington Odeon, and in many other years with a couple of other cinemas which were sufficing the need to be able to see those brand new releases. And I also had quite a selection of independent cinemas that were giving us the repertory of long lost, long forgotten films that were no longer in circulation, double and triple bills. And there was quite a selection. My favourites were obviously Everyman and Scala and National Film Theatre, and I spent a lot of time in there watching the films that otherwise we could not access anywhere. Don't forget, in those days of the 80s, we had no internet, and the way we could see a film was exclusively through being in a cinema and being there when the screening was about to commence. And it was really very difficult sometimes to get prints of certain films, because they were either assumed lost, or they were hard to get, or the prints were expensive, or indeed the cinema simply couldn't access them. So we had to wait quite a while for certain films to come our way, and evidently once they arrived, it was the major event of that week, month and year. All of that's completely gone today. I forgot to mention Riverside Studios. Riverside Studios was also my local independent cinema when I lived in West London, Notting Hill, and I used to go there all the time and absolutely loved their double bills. They were really offered at a very low price, was £3 or £4 per double bill, and you would sit there and watch these films, obviously on any day of the week, and they had wonderful Sunday matinees. And Riverside Studios were basically pulled down and rebuilt, and there will be a new Riverside Studios Cultural Centre replacing the old facility. And I'm very sad to say that, because the old facility was perhaps not pretty to look at, but certainly very functional and provided a tremendous number of services on a very low price. I think the new facility will be, state of the art. The prices will be very high, and although it will be still providing us with the same degree of cultural input, we are going to be having perhaps a few more difficulties in accessing certain services. But although, don't quote me on this, we need to see how all of that is to unfold, because it's still not fully operational. And I looked at the building from outside; it looks really absolutely magnificent. But we will be looking at what's inside and how it is delivered. How did I get there? Yeah, talking about not going anywhere but being stuck indoors and running online services day in, day out. And once we are fully liberated from this absolutely ghastly, deadly, lethal virus, I will try to beef up on outdoor activities, and things are going to be looking somewhat different. On the other hand, for the vast majority of our people here in Britain, they will be working from home, because I think the section of the industry realized and recognized that this is the new best possible way forward, and it's cost effective. It's providing a huge increase of on the productivity side of things, and that has been certainly truly appreciated through the pandemic period. And I think many of us will be working from home rather than doing anything else elsewhere. And we just have to be patient. We need to be upbeat and forward thinking and positive, and then we need to wait and see how everything will unravel. I'm certainly very positive and optimistic because I believe that the system we had not really been providing us dividends for more than 15 years, and there will be some significant changes needing to be applied in order for us to get back to our normal, which means to be able to create, to build, to invent, to be proud of our work, to get some earnings, and most important, to be able to connect to others without any major difficulties. And all of that is going to be almost certainly required, one way or the other. The overhaul of the system, the way we communicate, the way we connect, the way we socialize, and also the way we get employed, the way we deliver our services, how we work, how we do things overall. There will have to be some radical changes. I really personally have been very unhappy by the way things were in London for quite a few years, and as a person who had been running on-site as well as online services for almost 2 decades, I have a lot of experience of different types of community groups, and really it's just gone from bad to worse. The biggest problem has been that us as entrepreneurs had constantly a massive increase of all costs. It was more difficult to set new things up, and we had very, very few gains or returns. And from the time where you were literally working in order to pay your bills and in order to break even, you've gone to a period where you have to pay in order to be able to work. I mean, that's just complete nonsense, because ultimately the purpose of work is exactly the opposite. And also the overall atmosphere of constant hurry and lots of unpleasantries that could be seen on the streets, coupled sometimes with obnoxious behavior, with drunkenness and all sorts. It's just really not my sort of environment, not something that I really appreciate, I want to be a part of. And I'm hoping that in the near future, with everything we've gone through, there will be some radical changes present. And certainly if we are looking at the judiciary here in Britain, all of that's already gone through a major change. Obviously we've stepped out of what was previously European Union for us, and we will be having a very, very different country, a very different selection of laws and regulations, as well as the life, which will be organized in a different way. So I'm always positive and upbeat, but at the same time I'm also hoping that our leaders, that means not just the political leaders, leaders of industry, people who are entrepreneurs, people who are employing masses of people, will be wise enough to take a deep breath and look at all that we have before us, and then take the right direction, not the wrong direction, because there's no way back. What's happened has happened. It's gone to oblivion, and we'll need to find new ways to which we'll, as I said, work, earn, build, invent and share. So my weekend was great. I had a lot of sleep, a lot of rest. In fact, I'm sleeping probably 2 hours longer than usual, and I've noticed that after I had my vaccine. So I really attribute it perhaps to some changes in my biochemistry, because this vaccine is fairly powerful and it works on the autoimmune system, and people have all sorts of side effects. I've had actually no side effects at all. The only one I spotted was an increase of my appetite. So I've been eating 2 dinners a day, and that really is not something I want to do for too long. I was just massively hungry all the time. Certainly during the first 10 days, I've had every single day 2 dinners. It was crazy, and I could tell straight away I was putting on weight, and it's just a major difference to my regular day-to-day routine. And I wonder whether other gamers and other viewers and some of our community members experience the same. I had AstraZeneca, so maybe with Pfizer or with Moderna or any other ones, there would have been a different sort of experience. Otherwise, there was nothing else, and I had really very, very good night's sleep, which was a bit lengthy. I mean, generally I sleep on average around 8 hours, but this was pushing like to 9 or 10 hours. I didn't do anything much, to feel so tired, but it was a high quality sleep. I felt really well rested after waking up, and really liked the idea. I wish I could have that every single day. and that was the weekend for me. And generally, during the last month, I really kind of changed my routine somewhat. Generally, I look at video games and all gaming related during a day, and then once I go out for my dinner, I come back, I watch films, and that's the routine. I think recently I've also played games in the evening, and I'm not going to be doing this in the future because it does wake me up, and it just doesn't feel right for me. I like watching films before going to bed, but evenings are all about cinema, and that's the way it's been for me my whole life. So this weekend was full of films. Some of them are really very very interesting and definitely thoroughly enjoyable. I can certainly tell you that I had a few questions. In fact, I have a few questions. I had a question from Jonathan. Jonathan is in London, and I had a question from Miles. He's in NYC. So Jonathan, Miles, thank you for asking this. They said, we've heard you talk about film dialogue, and we also had spotted your film dialogue on Twitter. We've been watching it and reading it, and it's really great. And we want to know a bit more. I mean, how come that you are running two hubs at the same time? What's your personal preference? Would you like better films or video gaming? Tell us a bit more about how Film Dialogue was conceived, because it's a very rich industry-based community which has been around obviously for quite a few years. We noticed you had there more than 180,000 tweets, and you must have been tweeting quite a lot, they say. And so thank you guys. I really appreciate your question. I'll elaborate somewhat, and I think I talked about Film Dialogue here, and you spotted obviously that Film Dialogue was also my brainchild, together with DRBMiller Gaming Dialogue, or DRBMiller channel here on Twitch. So I'll give you just a bit sort of a retro history of how all of that had started. In the noughties, I was quite involved, in addition to my psychological services. It's just psychology service and psychology. Brain's a bit shriveled. It's not that late. What is going on? In addition to my psychology services, or actually therapeutic services to be precise, I was also involved with music industry, and I got acquainted with quite a few senior players and became very, very connected to the live scene. So the live scene also meant that I would be involved with lots of different individuals who were part of a vibrant music scene in London. So I did have a music scene community run on different hubs online, as well as the community that I attended to on day-to-day basis. We've had lots of live events, we've had lots of gigs, lots of bands, musicians. We had I personally took lots of photographs of many artists, have a very large archive of images which span over a period of about roughly 10 years, and all sorts of artists from grassroots, small venue level, to the very major, the artists playing at the Roundhouse, Brixton Academy, Koiko stadiums, you name it. And also I got connected to PR and music management, event management, literally the full Monty, everything, from the bottom. I mean, literally from the ground up. So the community was very, very hectic and very active for about 5 years, and you probably would have heard, if you're obviously London based, if you're British, of that so-called Shoreditch art scene. Shoreditch art scene was growing out of the early noughties Camden scene, which was full of musicians who sort of migrated from various art schools. They were creating different bands, and it was sort of how do I put it, a transformed version of what was previously in the previous decade known as Britpop. So the Shoreditch scene was situated around that area of London, which is near Old Street, and all of that was very much connected to the arty style, arty approach of that particular group of musicians. So we had quite a selection of different bands, and everybody was meeting at certain places. The places like Hawks and Blind Kitchen, Catch, and these were the two hubs. You had also Macbeth, of course, and this just goes on and on with different venues. Everybody knew each other, and don't forget, if we are looking at the development of online communities, it all kind of kicked off after we all embraced Facebook, because previously, prior to Facebook, there was MySpace, and MySpace did provide this unique opportunity for musicians and artists to be promoting their music by themselves without any need to be having inward investment from anybody else. And MySpace in its heyday was a phenomenon. It was just simply, embracing a huge number of artists from around the world, and every single band could create a page, which is a bit like the ID card, then place several tracks which they all created at home in their own homegrown studios. I mean, some obviously worked in bigger ones, but the vast majority were resorting to the music made on their laptops, computers, and rehearsal rooms basically. And this was the new thing. It's never happened before. And you've had then a band running their profile on MySpace and then building their own fan community, which was a bit like they became their own social network, similar to what we have today with video games. Sadly, as we had Facebook launched, many people migrated to that style of communication, which I guess was slightly more connecting and even more personal. And MySpace experienced some hard times and eventually just went under. But the communities that were run on MySpace also were then connecting various participants, attached to certain artists, musicians, or venues, and that was very, very, very busy on Facebook once everything was, fully made ready and launched, and therefore it was very easy to organize events and build the communities around certain events, and then have participants booking the spaces, telling you that they were going to be coming, and just the comms were like never ever before. So these communities were very, very enjoyable, and I certainly liked and appreciated the participation of so many. So that was really the beginning of my own online community build-up, which indeed was connecting not just the grassroots participants, but also people who were high up in the industry, from radio presenters to people working in PR and some record label guys, etc., etc. So that was a first-hand experience on how to do that online and combine it with on-site types of activities. That itself did take me a bit of time to master, because don't forget, for anyone who was in PR, they were all learning. This was all new. They all knew how to do it face to face, but actually doing it online was a different sort of art. So as a person, I've always been affiliated with film right from the beginning, and initially as a youngster I wanted to be a film historian, perhaps even a filmmaker, and I wrote articles on various directors and genres and parts of film history. Always spent a lot of time in cinema. As I was slightly, I was withdrawing, I was really peaking out really with my music industry involvement, I thought, well, why not really create a kind of community online for film and film history, and particularly for people who are like my chums and friends from British Film Institute, i.e. National Film Theatre, people who I meet very frequently, and then we discuss everything in depth, from genres, artists, film history points, and the latest releases. Why don't I really create something similar that would be on the internet and then global? So in the same way as I meet with, let's say, 2,000 people at the NFT on a regular basis, we can have many other thousands of people coming in from around the world who are sharing the same interest and definitely participating. So initially what I did was I created Twitter, because I thought at the time, this would have been at the beginning of the last decade, Twitter was the tool that bonded and connected people from the industry the best. It was a bit like having a private telephone number where you can text, and because not that many people used it at the time, it was much easier for anyone who was an industry participant to get immediate responses from people who perhaps it didn't even know personally. Today it's very, very hard to achieve because of the obvious. They will have production desks and people who sort of filter the messages. It's the sheer volume that's been on a massive exponential increase over the years. But at the time it was a fantastic tool to which you could connect, and it still is for me, because obviously I got to know quite a lot of people, and they also were getting to know me, and this was through online as well as on-site types of encounters and communication. So it's very easy for me to receive messages from people who are quite well known, because they will know of me and they will want to be corresponding to a particular statement, a bit of news or something, feeling really safe and sound about participating on my forum. So coming back to the questions of the questions that came from our friends, Film Dialogue was conceived as a forum in which we would have that on-site community built online. It would really connect hardcore film buffs and maybe a niche group of people who are spending a lot more time in cinemas than others and who are sharing that passion for cinema and film history, and those people who want to be sharing the experiences of films with everyone else who is on the same page. So Twitter was the first thing I built, and then I also created its Facebook and then its YouTube channel. And YouTube channel was providing loads of different interviews and documentary clips on silent cinema, because silent cinema is one of my niche areas that I treasure, and it was extremely popular. There were some that were being viewed, hundreds of thousands of times, and this is how it all kind of came to fall. This is how I began with my work on Film Dialogue. After a couple of years, I also built a blog, which is a bit like an online magazine, which has not been really fully functional the way I wanted it at the time, because I also wanted maybe a greater input from some of my associates that would produce maybe some articles, some discussions, some dialogue, and various other things. So Film Dialogue remained a hub for news and everything film related, present day and age, new releases, whatever's happening out there, as well as a hub for film history and the fans of film archives, and it comprises the two. So if you look at the blog, it does have portraits of people like Barbara Stanwyck and Anne Harding, Loretta Young, all the big actresses, and some great directors like David Wark Griffith, Max Sennett, people who are the pioneers in the industry. It has also lengthy descriptions of some subgenres like film noir, western, pre-code films, and anyone who wants to learn more about film history can just have a look. And I really also wanted to make it very visual, because I know for myself I like visual images, and I spent a lot of time prior to the invention of the internet collecting film posters and lobby cards and the memorabilia. So therefore running it like that online is highly entertaining and greatly enjoyable. It's also very time consuming, because for every single bit you need to be digging up photographs and doing some research. It takes a very, very long time, because I remember doing Barbara Stanwyck portrait, and it took me weeks before the article was done quickly. You collate information from the internet, the factual stuff, and then you throw in a couple of your own comments and views, so compiling the kind of biographical notes. But then having that represented visually is a different story altogether, and that is extremely time consuming. So in fact that slowed me down considerably, because when I was doing just quick clips on some of the remarkable pre-code films, I didn't have to spend much time looking for the memorabilia type of material. But when you're presenting Barbara Stanwyck or Loretta Young, or you're looking at Carl Lombard, these most seminal American film stars that really defined that era and became documented and sort of immortalized by lots of the films and articles that were written about them, having that degree of visual input was critical, because that made the articles popular and drew people to it. Forgot to mention, also have Pinterest, which is a bit like a memorabilia archive with different albums, with a scrapbook. It would be the best description. So going back to our friends and the question, Film Dialogue's been in operation for, I think the 8th year running now, 7 full years. We are pushing the 8th year, and it grew from maybe a few dozen viewers on Twitter to a community of about 5,000, and I had also more than, it was like a couple of million views on a YouTube channel. But unfortunately that channel suffered copyright strike for no other reason but somebody's malice, and I'm still trying to resolve it and tackle it, because somebody launched 4 copyright strikes for no reason whatsoever, because the material on my channel was all in public domain, and the algorithms just immediately blocked the channel, and it's been suspended temporarily, i.e. in medium range, or whatever you call it, long term, and I'm still trying to resolve this through the legal channels, because it was ill-conceived and malicious, as the person who did that was not accountable. We couldn't really trace the details, all the facts and figures on YouTube were obviously incorrect or concealed, and so therefore I rebuilt the YouTube channel with another concept that didn't really present any more uploads, but simply collated playlists, and that's been incredibly popular, as the playlists really are reflecting all that I have on different entities, and they're all based on genre, artist and style. It's very easy to find silent comedies and pre-code films, gangster film, musicals, westerns, and watch them at will. All of them are in public domain. There's a single title in there that's been copyrighted, and it has been just very, very successful and very popular. So Film Dialogue, in fact, was coming to a level in 2017, 2018 where I felt it really required expansion, required more input from others than just myself doing a monologue, so to speak. And I got a really good dialogue going on Twitter, and have still participants every single day providing me with comments and views. But the blog didn't really take off because it was lengthy articles, and I didn't really use any external firms for promotion. And I also wanted to make it as interactive as possible, meaning people interested in Loretta Young can immediately view some of her films on my websites, through YouTube and through my blog. And also thought if we were to be backing up the whole thing with some podcasts and some interesting discussions, that would be also generating further interest, and I'm quite certain many of our community members, more than 5,000, would pop in and have a look, if they listen to the podcast on playback, like what I do. I go out for a stroll and I listen to podcasts on my phone. They're just like one of my favorite activities, and it's so great. You walk in a park and you listen to a great podcast which is telling you all about somebody's life, biographical type of sketch, and you learn all about that person's history, their career, everything leading probably up to the demise or to death. And my favorite activity, really, doing that when I was about some strolling. So that was the idea. And this channel on Twitch was a direct result of that sort of brainstorm, because I really talked to 2 or 3 of my associates, and I said, I really want to be doing podcasts and kind of regular slots on YouTube, most likely, and we need to kind of prepare, we need to come up with a concept and all this. Well, I need to, but if you want to participate. But I said I really want to tease this out first in an area which is not so well developed, because obviously with Film Dialogue I have industry connections and generally became a hub for the industry-based news. So people who are British Film Institute, or people who run the American Academy, the what do you call the AFI, American Film Academy, they would be reading some of the news, they were participating. So these are people who are leaders of the industry, and they really are in the know. And I wanted all the content in there to be created in such fashion, be on the same level with what we hear on Radio 4, so everyone would be interested in watching and viewing, and would be provided with high quality content and additional knowledge. Remember, if you listen to a podcast on Ryan Werner Fassbinder, you don't want to hear everything you've heard before. You want to have something extra. Maybe it's a bit of trivia, a new viewpoint, maybe you are re-evaluating his work. You want to really find something original that will draw you to the participants. So I said, well, we'll give it a rest for a minute, and I'll build a hub for video gaming, because I'm a great graphic novels and video gaming fan. We'll test the waters, we'll try this out, and we'll see whether that is going to be operational. We give it maybe a 6-month or 3-month shot to see how it goes, and then all the learning experiences and everything else can be applied to the next step of Film Dialogue development. And what happened was, I obviously brought in Destiny to my Twitch channel, and that took off, and it was an everyday commitment with huge amount of community-based activity, which in fact receded somewhat in recent months. I've had a lot of it for 2 years, but people kind of migrated from Destiny somewhat to other games, and it's to do with, first of all, streaming services like Xbox Game Pass and PS Now, as well as the sheer abundance, the quantity of titles that really did come our way within the last 3 years. It's never been better, busier, or in greater quantity. So that is the reason. And for whatever reason, I migrated then to DRBMiller Twitch channel and Gaming Dialogue, and I spent most of my time working on it, connecting my community and working on that social network, because don't forget, if you're looking at what I've done with music community, it was all about social networking, being connected, and that was really comprising two different networks. One delivered on site, meaning with people face to face in real life, and the other partly reflecting it online, but the other was purely online. So I had very many contacts from that world who I did not know personally, who were communicating with us on everyday basis and coming to events eventually. In fact, we did have some live events which were exclusively done through our online network, and we brought in some musicians from other countries, most notably from France and Belgium, who were participating with us, and it was terrific. It was a wonderful experience. So the online community of gamers, which indeed is still present in here, I'm doing obviously my podcast and I'm here every day, is reflecting all of that to the same degree. And I think it's very, very important to note, it is the most vibrant community online on the planet. There isn't any other that will have more participants with greater interest and greater energy. The reason is simple, particularly during the time of the pandemic. We had everybody doing gaming and staying at home and being indoors, and therefore the numbers have just exponentially risen from 2.5 billion last year, at the beginning of last year. We've gone up to 4 billion of everyday participants with video gaming online. So it's a very, very active, very hectic, very energetic type of community with many, many different participants of all sorts from everywhere in the world. And it certainly offers us that opportunity to build new communities, to connect with new people, and this is what I've been doing. So generally, in no time, so that means within the next 6 months or so, I will be dividing my time between film and gaming dialogue. Whether this is going to be done on separate days or within each day, I'm not sure. I need to work out the system and strategy. The beauty of something as voluminous as my podcasts and the streaming here, as well as all I've done on Film Dialogue, is that it's always there. So even if you miss out on a day or two, there is content in there for people to look at or revisit, and it is always going to be very useful, giving them some extra knowledge and pointers, or indeed providing them with some opportunity to communicate and connect, as it is the case here with our gaming community. So coming back to your question about Film Dialogue is alive, active and thriving. I'm running it primarily at the moment on my Twitter and my blog. Pinterest is a massive, big, huge scrapbook of images and films and links of all sorts, and it's full of posters and memorabilia related to different actors, the film titles, directors. It's extraordinary. It's like my own archive, which I have at home, and obviously much bigger, more voluminous, and instantly accessible to everyone immediately online. And that is the way it is at the moment. So I think the next step for Film Dialogue, just to respond to your question, is podcast, and they will be similar to this one. In fact, doing this podcast is also testing waters to see how the responses are likely to be, and I think with Film Dialogue I will do some of them by myself, but then there will be also other specific podcasts dedicated to a genre, a director, or a performer, an actor, an actress, and then I'll be looking for some contributors. So we'll have a live online discussion, maybe some chat participation, and most importantly, we'll get the messages through playback, because people watch such podcasts and listen to them in their own time, depending obviously on the region of the world they live in, and then they communicate. So that's the future. I think that's the plan, and that's what I'll be doing. So also, just to tell our friends, what I usually do is when I watch a film, I take a few notes, and then these notes stay with me, and then I can reflect on the notes, or write a review or elaborate at a later stage. And certainly my intention was to be reflecting on every single film I watched over a long period of time, and that's not materialized because of all other commitments. But considering we have such easy access to films today, and this is probably my next step. This is what I will do. My Film Dialogue will have a section where we are reviewing films that we watched, and I also have Letterbox with Film Dialogue. Letterbox is a fantastic online diary of your everyday film and television viewing, and you can keep a diary and you can write a review and connect with it. It's similar to Facebook in terms of connectivity, but you have your list. It's your list of what you're watching that's connecting you to others. And you can also create your own film lists, like the favorite film genres or actors, directors, or any other, and there will be a connecting point for yourself. There will be a connecting point for everyone to join in terms of your niche interests, and most of the times people just see what you're watching, to see that you like Bergman or Mizoguchi or the traditionalist Kurosawa. They will be connecting with you because they like the same, and that will be my foundation stone for all that I still will be presenting through my blog, because on it you'll be able to see exactly what I watched on what day, and I'm keeping a detailed list which tells me exactly what I've been watching. It goes back maybe 15 years, and I remember also quite clearly when I watched certain films over the years, and it'd be quite easy to pitch, with some exceptions maybe because I kept cinema tickets, and so it's quite easy to coordinate. And certainly there have been periods when I watched very many films, and I'd say the last decade was probably the one where I viewed many more feature films than ever before, even compared to my formative years. And then there have been periods where I didn't really see that many films, specifically during the time when I worked with music industry, because music industry requires your presence every day after 3 o'clock p.m. to about 11, or after midnight, and therefore there's no time to be going to cinema. So that was really the collateral. Nevertheless, be the technology advancing, but us having easy access to films through streaming hubs like Netflix, BFI Player, and Amazon, very easy to catch up. In fact, I tell you, films I've watched in the last couple of days, if you're interested. On Saturday, I think was on Friday, I watched the Mauritanian, and this is a wonderful tackling the question of terrorism and Guantanamo Bay. So if you have a chance, it's Amazon exclusive. It's accessible on Amazon Prime Video. You can do it you can access it straight away, and you have fantastic actors there, led by Jodie Foster and Shailene Woodley, and we also have just bear with me. So sorry about that. I suddenly lost connection, and I was going to say that we have Jodie Foster and Shailene Woodley, as well as a wonderful French actor, Tahar Rahim, who I watched in The Prophet, or what's his name? Jacques Audiard. And he gives us an unbelievable performance of the lead character. So, if a chance, definitely have a look at it. And this is a film which probably is quite divisive. It can trigger off all sorts of responses in people watching it. And at the same time, Kevin MacDonald, who we know from films like The Last King of Scotland, he makes a very kind of factual, very how to put it, it's a semi-documentary. He presents you with the reality which you can then digest for yourself. Whether you agree with it or not will be down to yourself. He's not trying to interpret anything. It's sort of fairly austere to a degree, and I think that's probably the greatest strength the film has, because you'll experience each one of the characters in the way which is applicable to yourself. You're not being force-fed certain ideas and views. And don't forget, this is a highly political and politicized type of film. Therefore, the approach that he used is the most remarkable and the most appropriate one. Then I watched Clint Eastwood's The Mule, and it's quite extraordinary to see almost 90 years old Clint Eastwood writing the screenplay, directing the film, and being in the lead role. He's just completely remarkable in every way, and I thoroughly enjoyed the film. Yet again, highly recommend it. I'm a great fan of Clint Eastwood as director, and hopefully, health and time permitting, one day I'll write a book on Clint Eastwood, because I see him as being one of those American cinematic traditionalists, in line with people like John Ford, Howard Hawks, King Vidor, people who talked a lot about American history, and Ford in particular was significant as far as the traditional elements of American society were concerned. Clint Eastwood did exactly the same 50 years later, and I think he needs a lot more recognition and praise for the works, and also his relentless commitment to cinema, being aged 90 and still working on several projects and starring in them and writing screenplays and being the captain of the ship is just something I've not seen ever before. The only other person who was similar, albeit not in the mainstream industry, was Jonas Mekas, and I met him personally, and Mekas is absolutely, remarkable man, and the age of 93 or 94 I think we met him. 93 I think he was, yeah, I think 93 or 94 we met him at the BFI where he was doing a live on stage lecture, and just the energy the man had, and the approach and the visionary views were just incredible. And can you imagine, he was 93 years old and we all waited for him to arrive. He delayed the lecture about 20 minutes because he actually wanted to be on Waterloo Bridge filming what he considered to be very much of interest for his experimental films. And he was in a cab with Mike Higgis, and they basically went out, and he just wanted to capture that reality with hustle and bustle, cars and everyone else. So it was quite an extraordinary event, and I was incredibly inspired by that degree of dedication and commitment to film. Because at the age of 93, going out and filming in a foreign country is quite something. And I think Eastwood is definitely displaying the same sort of streak. And The Mule is a wonderfully story-driven film, so if you watch it, you'll enjoy it. Then yesterday I watched two films, one that I never saw before, and this is a film very much aligned with the works of James Ellroy, and I guess blends in very well with the game I'm playing, GTA 5, because it's all taking place in Los Angeles and at the time of Rodney King riots. And then we have David Ayer, who is also well known for his very brutal, very violent visual style of that sort of LA-based reality that we've seen in quite a selection of films. The most remarkable of one of these is his film Hard Times with Christian Bale, which is very, very hard to watch at times, I must admit. But this film is called Dark Blue, and Kurt Russell is in the lead, and you also have you see, my brain somehow sometimes just stops, and I just simply can't retrieve any more information. So anyway, Kurt Russell is indeed in the lead. This is a very, very stark, very dense police thriller about corruption in LA police force, and it is all happening around the times where the riots are about to break out. So definitely a very, very interesting film, and certainly very glad to have seen it, because I didn't see it at the time when it came out, which was I think in 2003. And then I also watched a remarkable performance of Riz Ahmed, one of our very finest, in Mogul Mowgli. Mogul Mowgli is a film based on a true story, I believe, of a rapper who's from East End and who is just about to score massively with his European career, about to go on a world tour, and then he develops a very severe autoimmune disease which is similar to multiple sclerosis, and his performance of a person who is suffering, who doesn't know what will happen next, not certain whether stem cell transplants and infusion will actually bring him health or illness, is just simply staggering. He's definitely one of the very best actors, and I watched him in quite a selection of films over the years, and most highly recommend also his performance. The film itself is very ambitious, and he crammed in too many ideas, which I think actually spoils the effectiveness of that message that he's trying to pursue. And the message is somewhere between the experience of the lead character, who wants to be but dedicated as well as divorced from his Pakistani heritage, and that seems to be blending in very well with his rap lyrics and his behavior and his internal conflicts. But the film starts in a fashion which is highly visually appealing, a very, very kind of experimental style during the first 10 to 15 minutes of the game, and then later he progresses towards a very straightforward conventional narrative, and initially combines some mobile phone footage together with imagery that looks sort of like something out of films of Jonas Mekas, in fact, we just talked about, and it just feels slightly disjointed. I think the problem is its huge ambition, beautiful delivery, and certainly film that they produced and filmed on a minimal budget. I think nobody really was paid from what I could see in the film, but having too many messages, the over ambitiousness of the director and the screenplay, I thought slightly derailed the film. But on the other hand, Ahmed's performance is definitely bringing you back to the tracks, and you can really soak up his suffering, and everything that's sort of around him becomes part and parcel of how you feel about his character and all the other activities on the screen. So again, highly recommended. You can access it immediately through the BFI player, or if you're subscribed to Amazon, you can also access it through there. So that's all about Film Dialogue. That's all about the project which I've been running for quite some time, and very, very grateful to our friends who were asking questions about Film Dialogue. Certainly very, very grateful to see that people are listening to the podcast and finding out more about my projects. Also, I'd like to ask our friends to pop in, drop a message, drop a line in there, send us a tweet, communicate with some of our friends from the industry. You would have seen quite a number. I'm not going to be obviously mentioning some names here, and they really recommend films. They trigger of certain discussions on actors, directors, frequently on British and American film history. We have quite a number connected to some niche areas of European and world cinema, so I'm sure you'll find everything. You will find something that will be of interest in there if you are a regular viewer and our reader. The other question I had from Stan is in Glasgow, was about how do I choose games for this channel? What's the criteria? And he said he quite enjoyed Destiny and Red Dead Redemption, but he wondered whether I have any particular reason as to why certain games are selected and chosen. He said also, I noticed you've been playing many more games during the last half year compared to your previous deliveries, which just had Destiny. Is there a reason for that? Well, thank you first of all for your kind question. Thanks for taking time to write, and I can certainly tell you, well, there are several things to be mentioned. Number one, if you are a streamer, if you want to run a channel on Twitch, you need to be very carefully selecting a game or selection of games that you will be indeed delivering to your viewers. There are many reasons for that. The way everything works on Twitch at the moment, and that is aligned with the mindset of many gamers, is it's usually connected to one game. So your channel will be associated with a particular kind of stream. Could be also a subgenre, doesn't have to be just one game. If you are, for instance, a streamer of Battle Royale, you can do Apex, you can do PUBG, you can do Warzone, you can do H1, you can do let me think, Overwatch, and the list can just go on and on. So they will be associating yourself with that sort of activity. It will not be just one game, there will be a particular style, subgenre if you want it. I think it works the best if you're specialized in one game. Elder Scrolls, Destiny, Warzone, Apex, doesn't matter, whichever, Mass Effect. And then you build your community accordingly. What's important is that you need to be looking at a game if you are just starting out. If you're building a community, that is not really the most popular at the moment. But it would have been extremely popular. It was like top one in, let's say, within a period of about 5 years. So the reason I've chosen Destiny is very simple. I identified the title as being the one that has the greatest number of participants. The community that was following Destiny from the beginning has been truly remarkable, and many participants were migrating from Halo community to Destiny because of Bungie and similar sort of activity, And so the criteria was to find a game that's extremely popular, but it's not that frequently played or streamed today. Which means if you're one of the streamers who's doing a game, the algorithms will pick you up. You will come up on top 10 every day, if you're streaming every day, of course. And therefore, the traffic coming to the, to the channel, not just my channel, but to Twitch category, which is called Destiny, will then be spotting you straight away, and they will all be watching your channel, your presentations, and they'll be connecting with you. And that worked perfectly well. It delivered beautifully. I knew that Destiny was going to provide me with some dividends, but I never expected that many people to come in so fast. And also at one point, this was I think in 2019, I've been voted the most frequent Destiny streamer on Twitch, because I literally had a stream per day, and the streams would be lasting from, let's say, 3 to 5 hours. It was a very, very dedicated program with our dedicated community members, and many of them still pop in today and say hello when I'm streaming Destiny 2 or when I'm doing any other game, and that's really truly remarkable. So the reason for me to select Destiny was based on those principles. So first of all, a game that has very many different participants and community members, a game that has been in the past very frequently watched and played, but perhaps not at the moment. But still, the community is out there. Fallout 4, Fallout 3, Mass Effect, Dragon Age. These are the games, Skyrim, Oblivion. These are the games which are ideal for a community build-up if you're starting out new. How do I select? Why do I select? Well, I think I also want to have a game which is family friendly, because I didn't want to attract toxic or unpleasant content from the beginning. And I did migrate to other games at a later stage after the channel was sort of fully blown and established and operating every single day, because we already had a major community of people attached to the channel. I didn't want to have games like Call of Duty initially, because they were attracting a lot of toxic content similar to Battlefield. Anytime you have any aggressive elimination in there, Gears of War for instance being a good example, if you're doing multiplayer, and also in Destiny multiplayer, Destiny PvP can sometimes bring in people who are very unpleasant. But I think generally the idea was a family-friendly game that's been extremely popular a little while back, with a huge number of community participants, and a game that will be having a very lengthy shelf life, meaning it'll be always of interest to others. It's not a game that will expire. So these were the criteria. So to answer your question, if you're selecting a game for yourself in order to be streaming, that will be the criteria. That would be certainly what I would recommend. The other part of the question was, why did you migrate to the variety streams? Why you streaming some other games? Well, I'm a variety gamer. I'm not a person who is attached just to one title. And doing Destiny for a couple of years exclusively, 3 to 5 hours a day, meant I was excluded from all the other gaming activities, yet I had subscriptions to streaming services on Microsoft and PlayStation, and it pained me to see that there was no more time in a day for me to try any of the other jewels that were given to me through those services. And I just thought, well, fair enough, therefore some of the other gaming activity could be also brought here to the channel live online. And generally it's been a mixed bag. If you were to ask me whether I felt variety streams were successful, generally I would say no. That it's not been as busy or as productive in terms of traffic and the number of community participants compared to the streams of Destiny 1 and 2, Apex, and certainly Warzone. And the reason is simple. As you are attempting to bridge different communities, you're entering groups of people who are attached to a particular game. And in fact I had a few people popping in and saying, well, you're the first person who actually has been streaming Borderlands, Halo, Elder Scrolls, Mass Effect, Red Dead Redemption, and there was some other game also mentioned, GTA 5, let's say. And this doesn't seem to make sense, because like so many different genres, so many different activities, and not many people from Red Dead will be migrating to play Halo, Mass Effect, Elder Scrolls. Well, fair enough, but I will. And quite frankly, I believe that whatever I do live online needs to be fully in sync with how I feel, and I always do what I love doing, so pushing Destiny for 5 years every single day, where in fact after 2 years I lost interest, for instance, I mean not lost interest, but I got bored, would be completely wrong thing to do. It would feel like some sort of office work. You're there because you need to be paying your mortgage and you need to be doing this every single day. There's no enjoyment in it whatsoever. It's devoid of pleasure, and therefore it's not worth doing for me. So that's the idea. And I've had quite a selection of different games. We played Division, we played Halo, we played A Plague Tale. I introduced loads of games offered through free play days and other additional services. And I also, after the end of my second year of streams, the second year? Yeah, that's right. For the third year, which is presently active, I've also decided to split my stream into separate sections. Previously my stream would be 5 hours a day and everything was in it. And I sometimes change games, sometimes I'd give lengthy introductions, all the community content, everything would be part and parcel of one lengthy stream. On the request of some of my community members, I've changed that. I've created compartments and I'm delivering that in sections now. So it's always going to be a stream which is game or activity specific. So for instance, this is our podcast. We talk about, first of all, my activities, what I do, really game-wise and otherwise, and then we look at the news coming from the industry and from our community members, and then we look at Q&As and community-based content. So it's the opportunity for everyone who's our community to come in and say a few things and ask questions, engage with all the other participants. And it's separate, and it's also labeled and dated. So anyone who remembers discussing something with me on 15th of March can just go to YouTube, click on 15th of March, and all the content will be there. You can always get reminded of it. In addition to that, I keep a list of the topics that I talked about, per session, per podcast. All of that will be on YouTube, still not been uploaded, but I will have that described in the description section for every single video. So anyone who wants to, for instance, resort to what I said about ethical conduct online, there's quite a selection of podcasts dedicated to that. They'll be able to find it with ease. And then somebody who wants to set up a YouTube or Twitch streaming channel, there's a couple of these dedicated to that activity as well. So it's a bit more precise, easier to find, and more compartmentalized, and I guess easily accessible to all. Otherwise, having lengthy 6-hour streams, 5-hour streams, need to find a section when you talk about it. When you talked about certain areas, is a bit heavy going. And that's about it, really. I think that's all in a nutshell. I will carry on with this format as I have it at the moment, which is in fact I guess less restrictive compared to the other, and I can do maybe some other additional types of programs depending on what my viewers and listeners would want. We can have separate slots dedicated just to streaming and the business side of things, like how to do promotions, what do you do in order to attract new members, do you do this or that, do you use this kind of software, you're bringing in external third-party staff to be manning and producing certain results for, etc. So the list just goes on and on. So it's always a possibility to select new slots if there's interest for them. And basically the way it is at the moment, we have podcasts, we have separate game streams, and then we have DRBMiller introducing. The introducing section is all about the new games and the games which are of interest, or maybe sometimes golden oldies, games been around for a while, people forgot about them. But introducing means you're doing something new, and principally there always will be games like Narita Boy, just came out, or Genesis Noir, and I'm familiar with the games because Xbox been talking about them for a little while, but many other viewers and participants and streamers are not, and therefore if they come and watch my podcast, they will be introduced to that, and go to the DRBMiller introducing a separate section of the channel will be always heightening the interest for some of these new titles. And don't forget Narita Boy and Genesis Noir indie games, which means they don't have massive marketing budgets and they require some degree of support from our streamers. So that's the idea behind the introducing slot. Alright, so we have some other questions. Let me just have a look in here. Yeah, there were 2 questions also coming in response to our ethical gaming slots here on my podcast, and the questions were really related to how to tackle abusive and unpleasant content, and I think that is of concern to lots of less experienced streamers, and not just those who are starting out. I'll be reading an article to you, reading out the article just in a moment. It is something I received today, and it's in response to, I think it's still in response to that trend that was present last week. Hashtag online abuse, and there were lots of gamers and streamers who were coming forward with their experiences, and I've got to say, on Twitter you get screenshots of what some people are receiving, and I really find it hard to digest, to see that somebody thinks that they're invisible or completely undetectable. They're hiding behind the anonymity, so-called anonymity of the user ID, and it's just beyond me. Because if I want to find out who wrote something, believe you me, I will find who that person is, and they will be brought to book, and they will be punished. If they committed an offence which comes under the criminal code, they will go to prison, and that's just the way it is. Sadly, lots of younger people are not familiar with the law or with the legal system, and therefore they take everything personally. It's completely wrong. I think the procedures and the measures that everyone needs to have on their Twitch or any other YouTube live streaming channel need to be exactly the same. They need to be procedural, they need to be done by the book, they need to be aligned to Twitch and YouTube rules, and they need to be completely impersonal. It's just, it's important, it's as simple as that. They need to be completely impersonal. If you break the law, you will pay the price. The law meaning your rules. And it doesn't matter who you are. You could have been a member of that community for XYZ number of months, but if you do something which is offending others, you're gone. And if you did something which is unacceptable, you will pay the price. And you're not going to be given the platform to do this again. And people can come up with excuses. They can say, oh, well, I wasn't feeling too well, maybe I had a few drinks. Not acceptable. It's just simply not acceptable. So basically, in response to the questions, I will read this article to you. And this article is very interesting, as it does concern two fairly big streamers. One of them, Valkyrie, did win the award last year from Jeff Keighley and the Game Awards, obviously. That was the ceremony. She was voted the best ever, the best streamer of the year 2020. So she has millions of subscribers and viewers, as well as many participants from worldwide. And she's also a very youthful female streamer who's very successful and very vibrant and very energetic, very highly professional presentations and everything. But she did have a problem with some people who kept coming in, not just to upset her, but to ruin the way her community works. And the same problem was also experienced by, Summit1G. He's also a very well-known Twitch streamer, and they all had to tackle individuals who kept coming in deliberately, consistently, with offensive comments and views, and with the method which was there specifically to be annoying their other community members. It wasn't even directed at them personally. So let me just read the article, and you'll find out basically what they did and what the position was that they'd taken. So GTA RP viewers are making streamers Valkyrie and Summit1G want to play less. Well, that's really taking it too far. They are not making them play less, but they're definitely making them a bit more alert, a bit more careful as they're choosing what games to stream, because it's certain that certain games are attracting more of that toxic content. And the game in question here is GTA 5, the game I'm playing at the moment. Negative comments from GTA RP viewers are causing popular YouTube and Twitch streamers Valkyrie and Summit to step away from streaming this game. And I think this is right. This is proper. If you have a game that is consistently bringing in that toxic content, you will have an afterthought. You don't want that sort of thing to be present on your channel. And I certainly felt with Warzone that although I personally have not attracted anyone who would be delivering any toxic content, I did come across gamers, particularly through random gameplay, who were potentially going to be providing that sort of plague that could affect everyone else, and therefore they were prevented from participating ever again. But playing with randomly selected gamers from worldwide, you never know who will be popping in and what kinds of things they might do or say. It's always a risk. But I think for them, are still very well established long-term streamers, they did spot some of the members of their community who were, I guess, consistently coming in with such comments and views, so it wasn't just a one-off. And they said although the popular Grand Theft Auto 5 online role-playing mod has recently seen a revival in its community with no Pixel 3 update, popular streamers Valkyrie and Summit are cutting down their playtime as they are faced with an influx of negative comments from viewers. I believe GTA Online is a multiplayer, and it's also having this sort of competitive activity in there, so it's not the one I'm playing, it's the other, which is GTA Online. Just want to make a distinction. Despite being an 8-year-old game, Rockstar GTA 5 is more popular than ever, and thanks to the emergence of private online role-playing servers, keeping the experience interesting for fans that are looking for more from Los Santos. In February 2019, one of the most popular GTA RP servers, NoPixel, quickly rose to fame, no doubt aided by the fact that the private server was populated by streamers only. As a result, GTA 5 saw a revival on streaming services such as Twitch and YouTube, with over 58 million viewers for the game in February 2019. It's absolutely astonishing. A recent 3.0 update for the server in February saw a resurgence in the game's popularity as streamers and famous stars such as Kevin Durant, Travis Scott, LeBron James flocked to try this GTA RP. As reported by Dexator, popular streamers Valkyrie and Summit have faced an influx of negative comments from viewers when playing GTA RP, so much so that they both have considered cutting down the playtime to escape the negativity. In the case of Jared Summit Lazar, a viewer's criticism of his role-playing caused the streamer to abruptly turn off his game yesterday, and he responded to the comment stating, "I'll tell you what, why don't we just stop RP and you can just leave now, other people can do RP now." Laser then went on to say that further criticism from the viewer would result in permanent ban from his channel. This is not the first time that this streamer has faced such negativity in his viewership. In August last year, Laser moved away from streaming The Elder Scrolls Online, stating that he no longer found streaming the game enjoyable due to his chat's behavior. I'm surprised really, because The Elder Scrolls Online, I have not come across anything toxic, but I guess that there might be people, if he is indeed as prominent as we can see, then there are sometimes malicious individuals just simply coming in order to upset. And it will be quite irrespective of a game. Could be any game, could be Pikachu, could be Pikuniku, any kind of family-friendly game could still be attracting these individuals if they know, this is the streamer, we watched him before, we attached to his channel, and we'll just do it again and again. And they say this situation was similarly experienced by Rachel Hofstetter. Rachel is known under her user ID Valkyrie. Upon being asked when she would be returning to GTA RP during her YouTube stream, she responded hesitantly, saying, "I think I would have really enjoyed RP GTA 5 if I wasn't streaming it, but I don't think it's worth the bad vibes." She went on to state that she no longer considered the GTA RP fun to stream despite its popularity with the viewers, saying viewership isn't everything. While her viewers suggested Hofstetter turn off a chat so she could enjoy the game without seeing any negative comments, she declined the suggestion as it was a lose-lose situation. And actually, I agree with Rachel. Streaming is all about connection and interactivity, so turning off your chat is just ridiculous because you are preventing the communication from taking place, and the reason as to why you are doing the game live online is to do with the fact that you are going to be connecting and interacting with others, and it doesn't make sense really doing something like that. So I'm not sure as to why people are suggesting this. While the viewers suggested Hofstetter turn off a chat so she could enjoy the game without seeing any negative comments, she declined the suggestion. Despite her hesitation, Valkyrie has since returned to streaming GTA. However, it is uncertain whether her viewers have changed their behavior to enable Hofstetter to enjoy the game once again. So they say, while it is difficult to escape backseat gaming as a streamer, it is even more difficult to escape it when playing one of the most viewed games on Twitch. Popular streamers such as Valkyrie and Summit can have upwards of 50,000 viewers during the stream, and although toxic behavior from chat may lie in the minority, can be difficult to ignore every single day. Of course, should viewers choose to continue to behave negatively, This could mean the end of Summit's crazy bank heists and Valkyrie's crime spree around Los Santos. Well, I have something to say about this actually. First of all, I definitely do not agree and do not support the idea through which, because somebody comes in and is being unpleasant, then this streamer would be turning off the chat. That is just not acceptable, and this is something that I would never recommend to anyone. Secondly, there are policies and procedures in there for people to respect. So for instance, if Rachel and Laser are streaming GTA, then they'll need to accept the fact that these are the games that do have a certain degree of negative aura attached to them and a degree of toxic content featuring on the regular basis. The way to tackle it is very simple. Anyone who comes in with anything negative needs to be heavily moderated, and there needs to be zero tolerance displayed towards them. So anybody coming in offending Rachel or Laser, and indeed doing something upsetting to the community members, needs to be, first of all, immediately banned from the channel, a lifelong ban. Secondly, a separate report needs to be sent to Twitch or YouTube indicating what the behavior was, and it needs to state exactly what it did. So it needs to be a screenshot of, a JPEG, a photograph of the interaction or anything else, and that needs to be then sent to their safety team. That's a separate department dealing with this. In addition to that, if other community members are watching, and she has 50,000 people watching, just think about it. If she asks every one of her viewers to report this person, theoretically they could receive anything from 25 to 50,000 complaints about this one person immediately, like at the same time. This is the best remedy, because if they receive thousands of complaints coming from the viewers that are doing that, watching that particular stream, Twitch will be highly alerted and they'll take immediate action against that person. What that means is they will be suspended or banned permanently. A lifelong ban will be applied to the channel, and they will have no longer access to Twitch services. It means that degree of abuse will be automatically prevented. If they said something which is litigious, then the screenshots of that experience need to be sent to the relevant authorities, and then they need to be obviously prosecuted. It's as simple as that. I still think that Twitch and YouTube, as well as some of the publishers, are not making it clear enough what comments will constitute a criminal offence, and they really need to be looking at this. We have seen recently from Twitch today partnered with a corporate legal firm which is very experienced in tackling online abuse, and now they're applying the method through which, if people for instance met through Twitch and they were being hassled and harassed through the platforms, yet again would be treated as if they were doing it on Twitch, and the legal firm will be tackling the issues on their behalf. So this is quite a more advanced method which they want to tackle all of that behavior, and I think generally online abuse has become very much of concern to everyone, be it the gamers, viewers, participants or politicians, and we are likely to see many more stringent measures applied, particularly as the world community is progressing towards working at home level, and people working from home will be using various online apps in order to communicate, and therefore any form of trolling or online abuse is utterly unacceptable and needs to be treated accordingly. People who are doing such things need to be simply prevented from being able to cause upsets, and they need to be taught a lesson, meaning they need to be basically treated accordingly. So that is what I always do. I have to say, on my channel I've had very little of that sort of behavior. This is a channel run for adults by mature streamers and people who have a serious approach to video gaming, people who treat video gaming as something very prodigious, something that is seen as the new form of modern art, and therefore individuals who are immature or who want to be upsetting others will know that they could be in serious trouble if they were to do this here. In fact, over the years of streaming here, we had just one single incident that in fact was prosecutable, and it was just a complete nonsense. It just popped out of activities we had in the Crucible, and we've taken appropriate action, and people who caused us problems were eliminated. So that is the way to tackle it. I don't think that switching off some of this chat is a good idea, and we have our comms here in order to connect and bond with people around the world. And equally, I don't think it's a good idea to be just preaching and not taking action, because quite frankly, there are people who do not understand words. Obviously, if they're doing anything abusive online through a streamer's channel like Valkyrie has 50,000 viewers, they've not read the channel rules. They've not read what pops up as they enter the chat, and that's the terms and conditions. That is their obligation. That these are the conditions they need to abide by at all times. If they're coming in, they need to do exactly as told. If the terms and conditions say do not talk about politics, then you not talk about politics. You break the rule, you're out. Do you play football game if, for instance, you are doing tackles which are going to be breaking other people's legs? No, you get a red card, you're off. You no longer continue the game because you're breaking the rules, right? It's very important for every participant to get that degree of clarity, because I think, regrettably, many people still assume they can hide behind their user IDs and the so-called anonymity of the internet. I just want to stress that internet is no longer anonymous. If we want to find out who's doing what, we can do that. It is very easy today with the new technology. So anyone who wants to do terrible things to others, beware. We are going to find you, and you are going to pay the price. And my advice to all the budding streamers and people who set up their platforms in order to connect to others, do not be discouraged by these types of articles and experiences of coming from dedicated professional streamers. This all comes together with the job. When you go out and you use public transport, you can never tell who's going to be in a tube train, who's going to be traveling by railways, or who's going to get on your bus. And it's exactly like that if you're dealing with an open forum where you are talking to anyone who is popping in and watching your channels. You're talking about, if it's 50,000 viewers, it's 50,000 different people. Think about it, 50,000, it's almost like Arsenal Stadium, it's like a maximum capacity. And there will be all sorts of people amongst them. And what needs to happen is you need to accept that certain kinds of dubious comments will arise. And if you have moderators, if you have methods which will be preventing toxic content from spreading and reappearing, then you will be sorted. And most importantly, I just keep forgetting this, I need to stress this, these are not situations that will need to be taken up on a personal level, right? This is nothing personal. I know that the comments could be directed at a particular streamer or community member with an intent to cause harm, but that is not personal. It is simply completely unacceptable, and you need to treat it as if you were dealing with this out there in real life. Basically, you do it by the book, you follow the rules, and people need to be brought to book. They basically need to be treated by the law, depending obviously on how serious the offence is. But I did see last week, and I'm really so saddened to have received all the messages, that several of my associates who are also female streamers were receiving some unbelievably offensive messages. These were not messages with swear words or anything which was racist or bigotry, but they were just targeting their appearance, and they were saying things in there which were completely unacceptable. It's been written in order to cause harm and pain, and I think people who perhaps are slightly emotionally vulnerable or a bit more sensitive will take it to heart. They'll say, well, it's been directed at me, and therefore I really need to do something about it. And I will just say once more, do not take it personally. It is not a personal issue. If they broke the rules, you need to follow your own agenda, your own rules, your own terms and conditions, and just do it by the book. Ban, report, include the offensive material, make sure this person is then tackled by the Twitch safety team and they're being eliminated from these forums. Because guess what? If they do that to you, they will do that again to somebody else when you're not live online. And this is something which is called recidivism, a repeat offenders. People do the same things again and again. If somebody is caught for drunken driving 2 or 3 times, they'll lose the driving license. And that's the way it needs to be here with everyone else who's offending our community members or our streamers in our online gaming communities. Alright, my friends, I think today all that said was dedicated to our community. We've had nothing on the news front, but it doesn't really matter because we talked about the news quite a bit during the weekend, and I had quite a number of questions that came in response to our discussions here live on podcast. So that's really pretty good, and I want to thank Gemma, I want to thank Josie, I want to thank Tom, Stan, Jason, and I want to thank also Abdul, who I didn't mention early on, who was asking questions about the selection of games here on my channel and some of the games he watched. Thank you all for watching the channel and for supporting us with your experiences. Always great to hear from everyone. And we've come to the end. So, God, I talked quite a lot. I'm thirsty. And just like I said earlier to our friends in response to questions about film dialogue, my film night is just about to start. In fact, I wanted to watch a film at around 8 o'clock and then to have a double bill of two films lasting roughly 2 hours. But it looks like my broadcast here did last a bit longer than expected, and therefore I'll still try to squeeze in 2 films which are roughly 90 minutes long, so it will be all good. So that's exactly what my evening's going to be like. And today, guess what? I did have my dinner a lot earlier than usual. On Mondays sometimes I have dinner here in town, and I've gone ready for a lengthy walk, so there's need to be stretching my legs. It's going to be all about cinema. So thank you for watching, thank you for supporting my channel. I'll be back tomorrow, and see you all there.